You're listening to the Energy is Love podcast.
The podcast has begun. Bum, bum, bum.
The dawn of time.
I wish that life had a soundtrack. Like, I wish that, like, legitimately when you were going through things, suddenly just music was playing in the background. So then it would be like, do you know what I mean? You know how, like, in movies or TV shows, stuff starts happening and then, like, music starts playing and it gets really intense. You're like, oh my God, I'm so involved in this scene because of the soundtrack in the movie.
Because it's like boom, boom. Yeah, right? I've got Axl Rose in my head right now. Welcome to the jungle. That's what's going on.
That's what's playing in your soundtrack. I don't know what mine would be playing right now. But yeah, we should have soundtracks to our lives.
I kind of feel like I do. Am I one of those weird ones? I think we've talked about it before on the podcast.
That is safe to assume about everything ever.
One of the weird ones. Totally.
Yeah. We've done nothing but talk about the same thing on the podcast over and over and over and over and over.
Oh, that's what you were referencing. Repetition, not uniqueness.
What?
I was like, are we one of the weird ones?
That what?
I was like, I think we've talked about that on that podcast before. And I said, I don't know. Now I can't keep going back. You've asked what too many times. You've clouded my brain.
What were you looking at on your phone?
A few things.
Let's go. What you got, my love?
Let's go. Okay. Well, I have like information that it's old information that went away.
Okay.
And it's resurfaced. And so I am looking at it through a new lens.
Let's hear it.
And have you heard of CERN?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So have you, so it's this incredibly like massive, it's the largest science facility in the world where they are there you have the physicists. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Physicists. No, shit. Yes,
no,
I did.
You said physicists.
Okay.
This is right.
So I believe it's outside of Geneva.
Where is Geneva?
Right.
Switzerland.
Yes.
Okay.
But anyway, so they had started up this thing where they have this huge machine that they've been working on. And what they're doing is
they're slamming atoms together.
Particles.
Yeah.
It's the particles. And which is essentially like everything, right? Everything that we are, everything that we're not, everything that matters, all of that. Boom. They're slamming them together. And I remember hearing about it and they're like, oh, they're going to create a black hole. Yeah. They're creating dark matter. And I'm like,
that's where Stranger Things got inspired from.
Probably. And so like I remember being like totally terrified.
Were you?
Yeah. I was like, that's it. They're creating a black hole. The world's going to suck in it. What are they doing? This is the end. And then I quit hearing about it and I forgot about it. Well, you quit hearing about it because they shut down in 2018.
Are you sure? Or they wanted us to think they did? Maybe in 2018 is when it cracked open.
Maybe. That could be a thing. Anyway, so from what I've got today, and I'm just going to like, boom, and then we'll dive into it. However.
Okay, I'll stop interrupting.
And keep in mind
CERN
that
update.
This is just like came into my like field as a holy shit. So instead of being like, oh my God, what are they doing? To now I'm like, this is so fucking interesting. So it literally just happened. So we are at the beginning stages of my open curiosity.
Okay.
So anyways, they shut down in 2018 because they realized that there was like too many, how was it? It wasn't, there was like a differentiation there. Oh God, damn it. I'm not getting those words right. There was too high of a variable. And so they had to go through and narrow it down because their variable was too high. So in order to bring that down, so they had a controlled variable that wasn't something that was actually testable. And I don't remember the atom, or not the atom, but the thing that they invented. And that's okay. It's like Hobbes or something. I'm just learning this.
It's the boson-Higgs particle.
Yes.
Or the Higgs boson. I think it's boson-Higgs.
So that's my Higgs. That's my Hobbes. I did the ha and the
they
booze.
Discovered a new particle.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So first of all, oh my God, right? That is freaking cool. And so now they have brought their controlled down to, they brought it back into a controlled theory, a controlled testable. But they have this and all the data that they had to implement into this machine and the tests. So now in 2022, we are recording this on July 2nd.
Okay.
And on July 5th,
soon
is when they are ready. They're turning it back on.
Oh, no.
And I'm so fucking excited. Like, maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm like, oh, it's the end of the world. Celebrate. But I am just like fascinated.
Yeah.
I am fascinated because, like, I think, yes, it can be something horrific. It can be like worse than the atomic bomb, which was, the discovery with that. It could be worse than that. Also, it could be magnificent. You don't, like, this is where like magic happens. We have to be willing to try new things. We have to be willing to step outside of the box. Like, science is fascinating.
Yeah.
So I am no longer, and it might be the end of the world. Who knows? I don't know. But I know to say, like, there's so many people like in the comments, are like, yeah, like Jesus is coming back and Jesus will save us and we need to pray and this is the end and it's bringing on like demonic energies and like all of these things. And just those comments right there are what shifted my mindset. Because I'm like, when people are afraid and they use religion to say something shouldn't be done, that's when something should be done.
That's when we should go towards it.
So I don't know. Who knows, right? But I'm looking at all of these like physicists and these people that are so excited and are like pouring their hearts and souls into this experiment, into this mind expansion knowledge of being brave enough to try new things. And that's like what everything is, being brave enough to try new things and experiment. I'm curious. I'm excited to see what's going to happen. And if it's a black hole and we all get sucked in, guess what? We'll only feel it for a minute.
Well,
it'll be okay. If Jesus comes, there you go.
They turned it on already, like back in the day, right?
They turned it on, but I don't think they had what they're doing now, because now they've got the voltage that they haven't had before. It's like stand by. I can give you a little bit better.
I don't know if giving me the voltage is going to help me understand what they're doing.
I think it will. I think it will. Hold on.
They just needed some Tesla batteries.
Right. So the LHC, the Large Hadron Collider, I believe is what it is, will return with a new energy world record of 13.6 trillion electron volts. It is in its first stable beam collision. These collisions will mark the start of data taking for the new physics season called Run 3. I don't know why that was hard for me to get out, but for some reason that was really hard for me to get out. So they have all of this new data now, and they have the electron, the flow of that is such an increase and intense. It's this Run 3. It's like they are taking all the energy from Run 1 and 2, because they've like had it twice, and this is going to be bigger than that combined, right? Like, it's exciting.
It is exciting.
I'm excited to see. And if
are they slamming the same particles together, or did you get that far in the article or whatever? Well,
there's like several articles and videos, and I was trying to listen to YouTube on like 1.5 speed. So I'm trying to get this information in and find it. I don't know, because I know that one of the things that they did is they had the particles, which is like actually fields. It's not like particles, it's fields. But they had it collide into something so that when it went poof, then those, like when they like exploded, they took those like the fragments of it.
One thing that I don't think people will ever accuse this podcast of being.
What's that?
Scientifically accurate.
I'm sorry.
We're not a science podcast.
I feel like you just called me dumb.
I didn't call you dumb at all.
I started off by saying I just barely like grabbed onto this with a curiosity as opposed to a fear.
No, I don't think you're dumb
I'm
at all.
excited to talk about it because it's about to happen. And is it going to be the end? Do stranger things come? Are the demons coming? Who knows?
Upside down.
Could it be? Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It could be. It could be.
Maybe we are the upside down.
Maybe we are. So they get into like one of the things that I saw about it was they were talking about the Mandela effect. Have you heard of that?
Mandela effect?
That's yeah. Have you heard of that?
I haven't.
So
Maybe I have.
That's the conspiracy theories, right?
Okay.
And that is they're like, we're already like, this has already happened and we're having a collective. The Mandela effect is it's when the collective remembers an event to have happened a certain way that it didn't actually happen.
It's the Bernstein Bears.
Yes, it is. It is. And so I'm like, I've seen some of those things pop up. There's one with like Ed McMahon and Publishers Clearinghouse.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
I won it.
Okay. So apparently,
What about Ed McMahon and Publishers Clearinghouse?
you can't find that information anywhere.
The Publishers Clearinghouse you can still find.
Fine. Like there's something about it, the clearinghouse, and it's like, it's actually some other thing.
Sweepstakes.
Some other, sweepstakes or something. And so they're saying like he would show up with a big check and they're like not so all of this going back and forth. And I'm like, that happened. There was a TikTok. So I didn't research that. But the one I did research, because tell me the line from Star Wars, the famous line that everybody says when Darth Vader like reveals his identity to Luke. What does he say?
Luke, I am your father.
Okay. That's what everybody remembers. You see that on all the shows and people are in the fans and Luke, I am your father. Okay. You cannot watch that show, but you know that line and you've used that line. That's not the actual line.
What's the actual line?
No, I'm your father.
No, I'm your father?
Yes. So I was like, bullshit. And I went to YouTube, the good old YouTube, and I found the clip and I listened to it.
What does Luke say before that? Does he say something like, are you my mother? No.
So, I can't play the YouTube clip on here though.
Yeah,
so
you'll be all right.
I can?
No.
Okay. I don't remember. I just remember he said, no, I am your father. And I was like, what? How does the entire world have that wrong?
Yeah, apparently.
And how did James Earl... See, you can't find it, can you?
No, you can. I mean, you can find... There's an article on Snopes.
Okay.
He wasn't... He worked for some other... He did commercials for American Family Publishers.
And that is not what it was. We all remember it. I have memories of seeing that on TV and they're like, no, it was this. So this goes to our simulation conversation, right? This cracks the door because we have the world remembering it as this. But the reality that we are living in now has somehow shifted and they're like, no, this is what it is. And you can't find that.
There are so many things like that.
Doesn't it just make your brain?
I mean, it's like you said, it goes to our simulation conversation that we had last week or whenever, right?
It's fascinating. What does it do? Like, I'm like, my gosh.
What's the Mandela thing in regards to CERN? Like it's already happened or?
It's like the theory on it, right? They're saying just the people that are like quacking off in the comments. So it's already happened or it's going to happen. That whatever happens and how we remember it is not what is actually happening, or however it's the tests have already come out 1 and 2. So it's just like there's no limit to what it can be. So whatever they say is going to happen isn't that. Or there's the other one that they're saying that this isn't what it is at all. This is what they are putting out to the world for us to hear. But they're really doing something completely freaking different, which, could be true.
Yeah. Do you think that's likely?
Do I think,
I don't know if I want to spiral out into some conspiracy talk.
I think if that was the case, it would be on some like military installation and we wouldn't be hearing anything about it. But because it's out in the open and you can tour it.
That's the best place to hide stuff, though.
Is right out in the open?
Yeah.
Yeah. That or Dugway.
But if I was going to hide something, I would hide it in plain sight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People aren't looking on the countertop. They're looking at the bottom of the drawers.
Well, when you hide something in plain sight, it's easily missed because it's accepted whatever, right?
Maybe.
So we'll see.
There's that thing of where to hide the truth, you tell the truth because the truth will sound crazy. Nobody will believe it. It's what you offer up.
Yeah.
And so then they diminish that and you're like, you give them the answer and they won't believe it. So then they look elsewhere and that's how you like deceive.
Wasn't where they
crazy?
Didn't they discover CERN, or at CERN, wasn't it a dark matter too? Isn't that where they found dark matter?
I don't know.
Or was that something different?
I don't know. But I know that that's like one of the things that they are
Higgs boson,
hoping that they will be able to get answers to and create in dark matter. And there was another kind of matter that they said that I don't know. But again, for all of you like that have geeked out over this and have all this information, like, I'm sorry, this is just the beginning of my CERN journey. And who knows, maybe in a couple of days, it might be the end. or we're going to have so much information. I love the possibility of mind expansion. I love the possibility of bringing in what we thought and then having new information come in, and we get more light, we get more knowledge. I love expansion. So I am so excited. And whether it's fantastic or detrimental, like, I don't know, but at least we're trying. And think of how this world would be if we never tried because we were afraid to try. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'll let you keep looking.
Keep talking.
I'm waiting for I'm just like, I know that there are people that are terrified and like, this is a horrible thing. And there are people that are excited.
Do you know when CERN first went live?
I believe it was 15.
It stopped.
Was it 12? Oh my God. Was it 2012? Were the Mayans right?
When did CERN go online?
What's it say? Here, maybe I can find it I'm on their website.
That's the birth of the web. I'm not concerned about
and
the
then
web.
I was also like, I did go to YouTube, but for a while, was it 2008? But for a while I was staying on like Euro, I can't remember what it was. I was looking at international stories as opposed to stories that are like off of Reddit in here. Yeah. I was trying to go like outside so I could get more of an expansion as opposed to.
September 10th, 2008 is when they first clipped or switched on the Large Hadron Collider.
Okay. And when did Ed McMahon disappear? Isn't it just...
It's so weird. I mean, it's not weird. It's amazing.
It's amazing.
So we're coming up on 14 years since it was first started. But the dark matter definitely has a role.
It does.
Invisible dark matter makes up most of the universe, but we can only detect it from its gravitational effects.
And there's
dark matter does not interact with the electromagnetic force. This means it does not absorb, reflect, or emit light, making it extremely hard to spot.
This is just fascinating. I'm excited to keep learning more about this. I can't even...
Yeah, it's really interesting.
It's really interesting.
There's a good chance that maybe that's when everything went kaput. Maybe that's when the simulation started. I don't know.
Maybe that's when it started. Maybe that's where it ended. Maybe all the things. And then what are we going to remember based off of what are we going to be able to find later on?
Yeah.
Like that Mandela effect is incredibly
bizarro.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if there is some explanation for that. I mean, I'm sure there is some explanation, right? Where everybody's got some sort of, like, science would explain that in some way.
How? We have a collective memory of people that are agreeing on the same exact thing, having the same memory, having the same information, that have never met, that are on opposite sides of the country, that are sporadic all over. It is a collective memory.
Maybe there's a collective conscious.
There is a collective conscious, but that is wrong. And they're saying it's this. So what's the thought, right? Do we not have that memory? Did that never happen? And we just all got it wrong? Or did something shift? Did it boom? Is there a glitch in the matrix? Is it a reprogram? Is it a shift? Is it a time travel? What if this is time? All the things, right? All the things that it could be. But you can't diminish the possibilities when this is such a huge thing. It could be anything. You can just throw a what if out there and it's a possibility.
Yeah.
That is incredible. That is so much my brain is what?
That's science. Throw out a what if. It's a hypothesis. Right?
Everything that we know as fact is theory. And they call it theory. And people have it as fact. Everything is a theory.
Are you able to accept that when it comes to your own beliefs?
What do you mean?
So rather than holding on to your beliefs as fact, are you able to continually question them as theories?
My beliefs continue changing. So I believe so.
Is there any one belief that you hold on to as fact?
I don't know. I guess... Are you talking I don't know what you mean, like beliefs of, like beliefs that are like out there, like, or beliefs as in like memories, like
anything, all of it. We know that not your memories, our memories, right? Memories are not just fallible, but they're, it's like our memories change.
They do change.
They keep
that's a slippery
molding
slope
and shifting
too.
and changing and evolving and devolving.
We lose parts of it. We gain other insights that we haven't had. We have, we allow other perspectives of other parties involved to come in, and then we're like, oh, I see it that way, and it shifts the experience because we are able to input their perspective.
What if that's what the Mandela effect is?
Maybe. And there's also the effect of where you have powerful, like, manipulating energy that can convince you of a different memory. And then you also are able to gaslight yourself and convince yourself of a different memory. Take away memories. We're able to block memories. Like, there's so much that is, like, nothing is
impervious.
Nothing is impervious. I do have one, and that's love. But that doesn't say that love won't change. Like right now, like I have a belief. I know who I love. And that is unchangeable.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean, though, that my love for that person or whatever might change in the next minute. Like, so that is a fact. It is here. That is unchangeable. I love, but I might not love in the next minute. I probably will, but I'm just like acknowledging that could be different, but it doesn't change that is a belief for me now.
Do you spend much time questioning those certainties, those beliefs? Both the positive and the negative ones, right? Because we've got certain ones that we hold to be like true about ourselves that are really negative.
Yeah. That
we have to kind of confront, challenge, and face and allow to morph and change over time. But then what about the positive ones as well?
I feel like I give a lot of energy on questioning my beliefs. And I don't necessarily use the word beliefs. I've been using the words agreements, which I'm holding interchangeable. So I have a lot of questioning of my agreements and whether it's things that I've consciously agreed to or that I have the agreements that have been made for me and agreements that were made for me to lead me to conscious agreements that I would not have made. So I'm like, I'm tearing apart the system of me continuously, tearing it apart and looking at it. And then when I find myself here and in these things, and sometimes it's harder for me to break those apart, and I'm focused. I can't tear apart everything all at once because I'm not a Jedi. Left. I'm not a Jedi. Yeah, there'd be nothing left. But that is something that has been happening for years. Not 4 years, but FOR years. Many years. It's an ongoing thing, and I don't think I will ever stop.
What about you? Are there certain ones that, first and foremost, I was going to tell you this from the beginning of the podcast. I had an idea of, I sit over here in my chair of
superiority.
Not superiority.
Devil's advocacy.
No, he oftentimes questions Stephanie. And that's that's how our conversations go. And I wanted to give you an opportunity to just flip this episode and question me away.
Question you away?
But at the same time, it wasn't a obligation.
Can we turn that into a different way of like, let's just have a conversation without me having to try and tear apart you and your beliefs and like in a contradictory way? We can just...
Is that what it feels like sometimes? Like I'm tearing apart your beliefs?
Sometimes it does feel like you're... sometimes my perception is that you're not really interested in hearing my side of things and entertaining that. You're more interested in changing my side of things to align with yours. And that doesn't feel good. How is that? So what does that, to hear that, what does that, is that feel aligned, or does that more of a wall against?
I'm curious what that would spark inside of you.
Okay. So tell me what you think about CERN.
Maybe
let's back it up. Why? Okay.
I'm going to bring up this thing and offer it and then just immediately flip it.
What?
That makes me feel terrible.
Okay.
That you would interpret my actions that way. So then I have to like sit with those and think,
That also could be my my fear of judgment too. It might have nothing to do with you.
There's definitely time, like there's an aspect of like my life is easier if, I mean, we know this from experience, right? If everybody went along with what I wanted, then my ego thinks my life would be easier.
Right.
But the reality is that would not happen. Like if suddenly I could snap my fingers and everybody did what Craig wanted him, or you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If everybody did what I wanted them to do, or behaved the way that I wanted them to behave, or thought the way that I wanted them to think, my life would not suddenly become stress-free and easy. I could only imagine what would, kind of ensue after that. Like, I don't want you to, are there times when I definitely want you to see things my way? Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. Like,
probably, there's times I want you to see things my way right, too.
Probably the majority of the time, especially when we are facing something that, God, you name it, right? Something in our life, in our relationship, parenting together, even just stuff like like
when we need to come to a decision together.
Yeah. I'm like, it would just be a lot easier if you did this the way that I wanted it done, or saw it the way that I wanted it seen. However, I mean, if I'm truthfully honest, do I wish that you saw things my way more frequently than you do? Yes. However, I would never want to change you and the way that you see things based off of how you see them and your experiences in your life. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
I would never want to alter your perspective or your thoughts or your beliefs. Now, do we have fun conversations, and do we get into different areas, and are we constantly challenging one another and working together in the space of trying to kind of be the best versions of ourselves as we possibly can, right? And that requires that requires some challenge, some confrontation, some sometimes some peaceful, supportive nudging, and then sometimes a kick in the ass. And I absolutely think that's necessary.
I do too.
And we do that for both of us. We do that for each other.
I think that's like smartest person in the room energy.
What do you mean?
I mean, there's the people, like what you're saying is like what we do is the positive aspect of it. There's people that want to be the smartest person in the room. Mm-hmm. So their ego, however, I'm the smartest person, and then people are looking at them.
Go ahead.
But that also contradicts what you just said, which is where I feel like we align most of the time. But yeah, there's times you want to be the smartest person in the room. That's like,
there's sometimes I am the smartest person.
There's sometimes you are the smartest person in the room.
I spend a lot of time in a room by myself.
That's what I say. So, but what you just said about the pushing each other, and then there's people that, and this fits into this theory, that there's people that do not want to be the smartest person in the room. Because if you're the smartest person in the room, what are you learning? If you've already got, like, if you are not, but if you're there and you're not the smartest person in the room, or you're willing to not be the smartest person in the room, that means you are surrounded by people that are going to be able to expand your mind and expand where you are. So that's what it feels like when you're talking about the pushing each other, is we're pushing for expansion of our mind. We're pushing to grow. So there's nothing to grow if you're already at the top. But
I just realized something.
What's that?
When you just said there's people that don't want to be the smartest person in the room. And I'm like, why? Why would you not want to be that? And then you elaborated beautifully why. And I'm like, oh, that makes tons of sense. Why did I have... And then it was clear. It was like, that's how I feel safe.
Yeah.
You know,
that's a whole other aspect of it.
That's how I feel safe. I'll either be the smartest person in the room or lie to myself and tell myself that I'm the smartest person in the room.
Yeah.
So then that way I can just be safe that way. And it hasn't worked.
It hasn't worked.
No, it hasn't worked. I definitely benefit when I go in to any room, any aspect, any experience with that idea and the intention and that openness of like, what can this person teach me? Or what can this experience offer me?
Yeah. I totally get the safety thing. That is such a strong thing. I feel that as well. And there's also the flip side of the safety of it is if I'm not the focal, then I'm not the focal because I have so much fear of being the focal too. If attention is on me, that means the threat is coming that way. So I also have safety in being back and not being engaged and not being in the line of sight.
Like the center of attention.
Mm-hmm. The center of attention is fucking terrifying for me. I hate that.
Yeah.
It's so hard. It is so hard.
I wrote this down on my paper over here of note reminders for this episode.
Okay.
Go towards it.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about our conversation that we had yesterday. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's something that we talk about on the regular in the space of like our relationship. Like right now, for example, you and I could probably list out the top 5 things that we are avoiding in our relationship.
Okay.
And
are we?
I don't know if we want to right now or not, right? Maybe not. Let's change the subject, actually.
Like I'm going to throw something at it.
Those would be like the 5 things that if we went towards, our relationship would get stronger.
Suddenly I want to make a list.
Don't you think?
Right. I do.
It's the things that we don't want to face and the things that we don't want to look at.
Go towards it.
That if we go towards those things, because I thought about it in the concept of what, they're talking about CERN earlier and like these scientists that are stepping outside of, oh, maybe this isn't a good idea. Maybe, you might crack open the universe. Maybe you're going to kill everybody or open up a black hole. They're
talking about God particle.
Right. Maybe there's this thing that shouldn't be discovered. And somebody has to be like, at some point, the fear that keeps people from looking at things or going towards something is probably a really good indication that it should be like gone towards.
Yes.
We should probably go towards that thing and look at it and explore it and question it and sit with it, right? Because it's probably going to lead us into the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. Like you can look back over history in the course of time where every time somebody pushed the limits of what was accepted or what was the norm or went in opposition to the societal belief or whatever the case may be at the time, right? Mm-hmm. That's what changed everything. That was what was needed. So it takes those people that are willing to face that fear, face the potential rejection from society or whatever, right? I mean, it's even to the extreme of, there are some really terrible things that have happened.
Yeah.
Because of people that went places that other people told them not to go.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
And I would argue that those things, the negative side effects of that also led us into and towards the next big thing or the next great thing, even though it's like that thing where you stretch everything out over the course, like everything is synchronistic and everything is leading us towards highest and greatest good, even when it's bad or appears to be bad. Like who's to say, right?
Right. All the things that didn't happen or didn't happen until later because somebody said, don't go there. And then you listened.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I won't. And then negativity was like prolonged or positivity was prolonged. Like there's so many different ways to look at it.
Yeah.
I like the going to, like, and while we're talking about our relationship and the 5 things that we're avoiding, right? What about looking back? Because, you know, we've got to be all encompassing. What about looking at the things that we avoided, that we stopped avoiding and we walked towards? And so while we have this thing of, yeah, there are some things here that we're avoiding, we have a really good track record of going towards our fears in our relationship and having this relationship that we have now because we did that. And yes, we are not perfect. We have not. And we might never be able to face everything. And we might. But I feel like we faced a lot. And
in our relationship specifically, because
yes.
This is separate from like the self, right?
Yeah.
Like I know for myself, I've got a list of things that I'm not going towards right now.
Oh, yes. Did I misunderstand?
Not at all. I'm saying in the context of our relationship.
Yeah.
First and foremost, can you even have one that pops into mind? Of something that we're not going towards.
That
or
we're
something
not
that
going
we're
towards? There's definitely one that I'm like freaking out about.
Yeah.
But like I'm trying to, but not. The possibility of like shifting up our living environment.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm not sure.
I love how you articulate that.
What? Shipping? Well, because I'm not even like willing to commit to the verbiage.
Right.
I'm like, I'm ready, but no.
Possibility of shifting up our living environment.
And it's funny because I have my wants and my beliefs with it, but I also have some animosity. I'm sorry, I do. It's just what it is. Towards the situation in a sense.
That's curious. What would be the animosity towards the situation?
Well, I can elaborate on it, but it might just like take the podcast in that direction.
Well, hold on. So you've thought of one.
Yeah. Can you?
A topic on it. Yeah.
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 Which is yours?
Sex.
Okay.
What do you think? Does that one land for you? Or is that one just my own that's bleeding over into my head thinking that it might just be my own.
I don't know. I don't know.
It can be both.
I think it is. I think it's yours, mine, and ours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably accurate.
Well, follow me for more accurate scientific facts.
But I can't think of a lot.
Yeah.
I can't think of too many other ones that we don't really go towards or that we're avoiding. Can you?
Also, no, I can't. But like I liked your disregards to us, but when we're looking at self, there's things that I think we can both acknowledge that we are like locked on. We are locked on. We see that fear and we are like, oh, we are going towards it. And then there is shit that we are like choosing consciously to not even fucking entertain and that we can't even perceive at this point, but we can feel the existence of. We're like, I'm not even ready to try and pretend to know what that is.
So I think we can both do that for each other too, right?
What's that?
Like I'm going to ask you, and if you don't have something that comes up, that's okay. But do you
have something that comes up for you? What is the thing that you are not going towards?
No, I was going to
deflect.
I was going to ask you if you can see that for me.
Sometimes, yes.
Do you have anything in mind right now? Something that you kind of feel and or see in my space that you feel like I may not, first and foremost, may not even be aware of, or secondly, be resisting and not going towards? And it's completely safe. Right now.
I don't.
And if for some reason it's super triggering, then I'll be like, fuck that, let's move on.
I'm not going to just jump into that because that's a very vulnerable moment. And I need to be able to really check myself before we go into that and make sure that I'm coming from a self place and not an agenda place. before I pull something like that out.
From an agenda place.
Yeah.
Are there things that you wish I was going towards? So then they would help.
Yes.
So then that may be our relationship stuff.
Yeah. Not necessarily.
Are we caught? Do you think we're talking in code too much? That this conversation doesn't make sense?
Buy our secret decoder ring in our merch store. Like, let's. You want to know? It's $9.99.
Podcast decoder ring. That would be awesome.
I would use it all the time. I'm like, what the fuck did that mean? What were we saying?
We should totally make one.
Should we?
And it'll be like a Christmas story. Ovaltine. Fuck that.
Energy is love. That's the message.
No, I think that I think you're right. I think there's probably stuff that we're not even aware of. That kind of scares me. I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on the stuff that I'm both going towards and the stuff that I'm kind of like, that's on deck and maybe I'm not fully looking at or not wanting to address, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I know undoubtedly, just from experience and from having enough, life experience at this point, that there's stuff I'm not even aware of.
Yeah. How many new awarenesses have you had, we'll say, in the last 6 months?
Right.
Right. Just that alone will tell you, like,
yeah. There's plenty.
There's plenty.
What is one that you can talk about that you've been able to have awareness of that was really difficult to go towards, but now you're on the back end of it and you can see the benefits?
I don't even know if you're talking about for me or you, but that scared me, that question. And so my mind does that thing of where those direct questions that are emotion inducing, a lot of times when it's in regards to me, and like I've got nothing.
Your mind just went
boom. Like this is my key to meditation. A direct, uncomfortable question, and I'm clear. It is the blue skies up there. There's not a cloud to go by.
Mine is empty. What are you feeling? Great question.
Exactly. That's one of my. It's like I'm like, would it be funnier to say like a possum that fakes death or like a fainting goat?
What about our relationship?
Trust.
Yeah.
Trust. And it's to quote the brilliant mind in the room, multifaceted. There's layers of that up and down, stuff that we are still working on, stuff that we can't even see yet, and so much that we have been able to hit head on and have moved through and are stronger for it.
We did a silly one recently because sometimes it's the easier or smaller ones that help, right? Make it easier for the bigger ones. But I don't know what episode. It was recent when we were talking about those little quirks that we both have.
Oh my God.
Like that was stuff that we not necessarily were avoiding, but we weren't even really dealing with it was kind of like when it would come up as an itch, we'd scratch it rather than really addressing it. And then we talk about it on the podcast and some shifts already, right?
Right. Some shifts. I have a question for you in regards to that.
Okay.
Since we've talked about it so in depth on the podcast and had that awareness that we brought up and see some shifts, have you noticed more
little quirks that have annoyed me?
Have you like noticed more and be like, but I don't know, maybe you won't talk about it on the podcast.
I don't think so.
You haven't? Okay.
Have you?
Maybe.
What's one?
Also things that I don't want to talk about on the podcast because I think like they're mean but all of a sudden it was like
suddenly all my quirks are becoming apparent.
Suddenly I'm like, that's what I could have talked about. I've also been kind of in a funk. So when you're in a funk, you seem to notice annoyances more because you're in a funk.
Triggered,
it's all about you, but you're projecting it to it's all about them. So so I've been in a little bit of a funk and I'm like, sorry.
You're okay.
It's okay. I also have found a lot that. Okay, here's one. Here's one for myself. I will use avoidances that I can see in you, like those things that, like little quirks, to distance myself from craving connection. It's not especially, but when I feel like connection is not obtainable from you. So if I feel like you aren't willing to connect with me, you aren't willing to interact with me in that loving, connective way, then I will find reasons to distance myself from you so I won't feel a lack of connection. So I can be like, it helps build a wall for myself. And there's a much healthier way to do that than what I'm doing, but that's what I'm doing.
So now I have become aware of one in our relationship that we should probably go towards.
What's that?
It's the connection. It's the attachment, the unattachment. It's the way that you and I, it's our coping mechanisms in regards to attachment and unattachment.
I am so ready to dive into attachment theory with you. And I feel like you are unable to meet me there.
Really?
Yeah. So
that's so fascinating.
It's like it's like I'm ready to dive into what it really is, but I don't have time to I'm choosing not to invest my time to try and get you past all of the avoidance. It's like you get to be avoidant as you need to be, and when you're ready to meet me, then I will meet you. But until you're ready to meet me, I'm not spending my energy trying to get you to meet me. And I feel like I'm letting you down on part of it. But also I'm like, you got to put some effort into this, or I'm not throwing it all in if you're not willing to meet me halfway.
So this is so funny because
you do you, boo boo. I'm here when you're ready.
You know, she says that and cracks herself up.
Too.
We're going to take a little side jaunt before we get into attachments. I find when I have to repair something on our vehicles, if I can find a YouTube video, then typically I can do the repair. And luckily there's plenty of YouTube videos.
I love YouTube.
And I was watching a YouTube video on how to do the brakes on our van. And the guy that was recording the video had a tendency throughout the entire video to use that line where he would talk about like, this is the way to do the brakes, so on and so forth. But you don't necessarily have to do it this way. This is just the way that they recommend doing it. And then at the end of the day, you do you, boo-boo. And that was like his tagline. And after about the third or fourth fucking time, nuts. It drove me insane.
You would be there and be like listening and like really intent, and then hands in the hair, like that was the thing that was the annoying. Nails on the chalkboard for you. Annoying. It got under your skin so hard.
That guy does a lot of videos too, and somebody must have told him to never say that again because it's only that one video that I've ever seen.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've watched a handful of videos of him because he, that's his gig and that's what he does and the company that he works for or whatever. But there's that one video. So luckily I learned how to do the brakes and I don't ever have to go back and watch it.
And it is such a joy of mine. These little moments. Glad. It's funny. And there's times I forget and you will say it in a sense, like in a joking thing. Yeah. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I can say that thing and be teasy and silly, maybe slightly passive aggressive. I'm not just sure. Slightly. It might have a little undertone of like,
So let's talk about attachment.
Okay.
Because I feel like this is probably a shadow that we need to go towards because it's going to help our relationship.
Okay.
And you just expressed that like you're so ready to dive into it, but you don't want to put forth the energy because you feel like I am super avoidant and it's like you'll meet me, on the playing field, but you're not going to drag me kicking and screaming to the game. Kinda, basically, right?
That's my perspective.
Okay. My perspective is you have a preconceived notion of what that work looks like. And I feel like it's this stuff. I feel like, am I definitely avoidant when it comes to connection and attachment at times? Absolutely, right? The coping mechanism involved in it and everything like that. Like, I'm not denying that at all.
Okay.
And I know that there's work that needs to be done in that space. And I'm slowly, right? It's happening over the course of time. I'm going towards you at times when
we're also figuring our own shit out.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
And so
that is a part of the work.
Yeah.
Like, that's like not a part of a work. That is the work.
And I feel like the narrative that I have is that you think connection in our relationship is lacking at times because of my attachment issues, but not because of what you bring to the table.
Oh, you feel like I'm just projecting it all, like it's all your fault.
Not like 100% projecting it onto me, but it's like for us to have connection, right? For us to have healthy, safe, connected connection, especially emotional, deep connection, especially during times of emotional strife and heartache and struggle and everything like that, right? In order for us to have that, both of us have to work on our attachments styles or our attachment issues.
And I think we are both avoidant, like anxious avoidant. And in our dynamic, you tend more towards the avoidant, but I feel like we have both of those like unhealthy dynamics in there.
Anxious avoidant.
Well, yes, I think we both have.
So
I
when
think
you
we're
say
both
anxious
avoidant, but we just like have it
elaborate a
different.
little bit more on anxious.
Anxious is more of the clingy and the needy, which like I don't want to just say like you're not supposed to have needs in a relationship. I'm not implying that. There's nothing wrong with whether you are oh my gosh, I'm losing the words here. It doesn't like you're not wrong. There's not like you're not bad for the relationship. You're not bad in it. So whatever attachment style, it's just like having that awareness of how you operate and what your needs are is healthy to bring forth in the relationship. Not I have all of this like this anxiety about being loved and I need you to like provide that all the time and like make sure that I am always comforted, because then now that's that unhealthy dynamic. That's me only feeling comforted when you are providing that comfort, and it's now your responsibility to continually make sure I'm comfortable by providing that comfort. And that's where that's that unhealthy dynamic. That's where it's damaging to the relationship, as to where if I was always avoidant and needed my space from you continuously, and it was your responsibility to make sure you never infringed on my space, and you always kept yourself distant and never like came too close so that I could fill my all of the avoidant that I need, unless I needed something from, you know, just kind of those things where it takes that tone of too much that can cause the damage in the relationship. So then there's the fun dynamic that we both have of we have both of those traits. We have both of those that are we tend to get like needing that other, the reassurance, the comfort, the like I'm still loved, I'm still valued, and do not get too close to me. So we have healthy balances with that, and we both have unhealthy balances with that. And I have very strong avoidant issues in the world, and my avoidance tendencies is how I have become safe, because that will shut off my feelings. It's like you tell me, it's like I have that off switch as to where my feelings, you know, will just boom, they're done. If I'm done with somebody, I am done with somebody. It's just like a switch, and those feelings are gone. And that's been really beneficial for me throughout my life. And it's also been very detrimental for me. So I have that strong, but in our relationship, while those avoidance things come on and they scare me, I will fight those avoidance feelings because I'm afraid of it going. I present more anxious in our relationship. And I don't feel secure in our relationship a lot of the times because of past. So I need, I reach too much for you to soothe that in me and to give me that security that I feel is not present. And so when you have past trauma wounds, and then they get triggered in a relationship, it brings it all to the relationship. So it brings it all. So there's like the factors that played a part here, but it was enough to bring in everything. So I present more anxious, and I hate that about me. And I feel you present, because you're going to get that balance. You're going to get that opposite. Anxious attract avoidance, and avoidance attract anxious. It's just like that weird polarity of how things go. So, and then this relationship, you present, while you have the anxious and the avoidant, you present more avoidant, because I am like giving you that, like that need. So then that's able for you to bring up that avoidant, and you shut off a lot. And then there are times when you are like, I need this from you, and I need space from you. So we just have this like dynamic, this dance. We find a lot of healthiness in it. And we find a lot of, I feel a lot of unhealthiness in it. So for myself, when I started the conversation with is like when I feel like I need more from you, and you are not able to give it, I will, there's times it's healthy, and I totally, like, you get your space and it's fine. And you can sense that energy, because it feels very different when you get your space. But then I have my default, which is my unhealthy mechanism, of where I will start bringing up, what do they call it? I can't remember the verbiage that they use, but it's basically like how I just gave the example of it. I will find the things that annoy me about you. It's like the disassociative patterns or whatever. So I will find things to like remove my emotions and my feelings. So I will create
almost as a way
space
to counter that anxiousness.
It counters it. So I start finding the things that do not work for me.
It feeds the anxiousness though, right? Because by countering it doesn't make it go away. It just alleviates that thing where you're not trying to get it from me anymore. I don't know.
There's like high road, low road.
Yeah.
So where I'm not trying to get it from you, but then there's also ways that I use it low road to push me away from you. So it's like I start to find
like as a self-punishment thing.
I start to try and find that shut off switch myself. So instead of having that switch get flipped, I'm like, where the fuck is that switch? I'm tired of being needy. I'm tired of having this anxiety. I don't want to like sit here and always be. So I look for that switch. So there is the healthy way that I'm in my self energy, and you're just doing your thing and I'm doing my thing. And when we meet, it's beautiful. And then there's the low road, the unhealthy aspect of where I am just like, fine. I know how to be avoidant. Like I learned very young how to be avoidant. You see me as loving you, and I've never loved a partner like you. I've never loved somebody this long. I have been in long-term relationships, but my love was not long-term in that. I just shut it off. It happens. I can't stop. And so like I sometimes I look for that off switch, because that tells me how I stop getting hurt. So I see the dynamics vary from both ends of the spectrum. I feel like I have a good understanding of both ends of the spectrum, but I don't always have a strong practice of seeing both ends of the spectrum and being in that secured space. I know what that energy is, and I am in that energy. And I'm also very anxious energy, and I'm also very avoidant energy. And I would like to say that I spend more time secured. I don't. That is a conscious choice that I have to be aware of and make changes in my life and my space regularly to be in that space. And I hope in time I spend more time in that secured area. But that also means that I feel I have a good awareness, and I know what it feels like when you are implementing your really hard avoidant. And it's really strong. And it feels like this is where I don't know if this is factual or if this is my unhealthy version. So I don't know if awareness or destruction. Is it high road or low road stuff here? I don't know. But I feel like when I am in my avoidant is when you are in your anxious. When I have not the healthy boundary, I'm avoidant, and all of a sudden here you are with all of this, and it almost makes me resentful. And it's really hard because now, now it works for you. Sorry, I'm checked out. So, and then when I come back and I'm now ready to meet you, then you go and you pull back off to your avoidant. Motherfucker, why did I give in? That's my, how does that feel for you?
I have so much to say.
You have so much to say? Yes. Well, okay.
You have done just a beautiful job of
podcast is over. I just took up an hour and 10 minutes for that little theory, so we're out of time.
No, I'm so glad that we've gone towards this.
Okay.
Because you said earlier that you're I'm ready to go. I just don't think you are. And
in this moment.
Right. I am so ready to go.
Yeah.
The questions that I was trying to get out and the ways that I was trying to ask you this question, you just answered beautifully. You have so much awareness, because the anxious way with which you attach is very, very, very hard to deal with.
Yeah.
Just as difficult as it is, I'm sure, for when I'm super avoidant.
Yeah.
When I detach, I'm sure that's terrible.
Yeah.
So hard to deal with, right? And I didn't think you had a real good understanding that was just the flip side of the coin. I didn't think that you had a good understanding that it's you want to, and this isn't judgmental, but it's what it felt like to me was you wanted to talk about how I'm avoidant and think that was just the problem.
Okay.
And if we could fix Craig's avoidant attachment style, then we would have
everything would be fine.
Then we would have the secure attachment in our relationship. And I'll be like, that's half of the equation.
How very avoidant of you.
Half of the equation is my avoidant attachment style. Mm-hmm. The other half is your anxious attachment style. And I didn't think you had awareness of it.
Okay.
I thought you had the surface, whatever awareness of it, but you didn't really. And so that was my fear, was if we go towards this shadow, if we go towards this thing, it's going to trigger you. And I'm never fucking interested in triggering you. I'm interested in challenging you and, pushing each other, like we were talking about earlier, in that kind of healthy way of holding each other and accountable and trying to help each other live the best versions of themselves and whatnot. But I never want to trigger you, ever. And it's that anxious attachment there's so much that comes up. Like you said, I think we very much have both.
Yeah.
I think you're more if it's a 70-30 split, right? You're 70 anxious, 30 avoidant, and then mine's flipped.
I think it's fluid.
Of course it's fluid.
Right?
I'm just talking about a snapshot of kind of if there was a graph over the course of time, right?
Yeah.
It would be you'd be more anxious and less avoidant, and I would be more avoidant and less anxious. Yeah. And I think it's really interesting that, so in the dynamics of our relationship, it's very clear. You're anxious, I'm avoidant. And then when we look externally with our relationships, it flips.
Yeah.
So externally, your relationships with friends or whatever, right? Family, you're very avoidant. You flip on a dime and you're like, peace out, right? And then I'm very much oh, love me, please don't leave me. Hopefully, I'm super anxious when it comes to those external relationships. So I find that really fascinating.
Right.
And then
that also plays into some anyways, that's another conversation. Please keep going. Please keep going.
But I think that like the secure attachment, and there are times when, like if we look at our nervous systems as individuals, right? There's times when my nervous system is, not 100% regulated, but pretty well regulated. I'm in a good flow of where I'm at. And yours might be a little dysregulated on the day, or vice versa, obviously. And I think that there's plenty of times now, because of all the work that we've done and the awareness that we brought to this, where if your nervous system's a little dysregulated and you're showing up in some of that anxious attachment, I'm okay with showing up in that space.
Yeah.
Like I'm okay with offering some of that to help regulate that nervous system of yours and kind of bring it back down and soothe you and help in that space, right? And then vice versa, when I'm dysregulated and you're pretty chill and you're kind of in the good flow, and like when my nervous system goes wonky, the unattachment, avoidant gets activated.
Yeah.
And you're really good at allowing me that space in a very loving, supportive way. I think it's when our nervous systems both are dysregulated and kind of in a flowy state where like it's really hard for me to show up for you when you're in that anxious place when I'm avoidant.
Yeah.
Super hard. They trigger each other. They repel.
So bad.
It's the magnet thing, right? The more we push those fucking magnets together, right? The more the force is that pushes them away. And that gets really scary sometimes.
It gets hard.
And then I think that's when those little quirks come in, where in order to soothe that anxious part of you, you have that thing that's like this motherfucker.
Yeah, like I consciously look for the light switch, and I don't do it subconsciously. It's not a like I'm aware that I'm intentionally creating space. I'm intentionally creating distance and avoidance, and I am consciously looking for separation. Like there's times that I'm not aware of it, and that's when I'm afraid to let you close, and that avoidant is like pushing you away because I'm afraid. I'm afraid. And then there's the fuck you, I'm gonna turn everything over until I find that off switch. So it's just like those weird dynamics that play in.
Yeah.
Do you have a conscious and a subconscious awareness of that too? Can you see where you consciously avoid? Yeah. And then subconsciously avoid.
Yeah. There's some times where I'm consciously doing it.
Yeah. Or I guess maybe consciously attached to, because I'm doing my flip side. So do you see of where you'll consciously like almost like be manipulative in trying to pull my energy towards you when you can sense me going? So interesting.
And then like the subconscious times where it's almost like, it's like you're on it's like you're in a car daydreaming as you're looking out the window and you're lost in that daydream. And then suddenly you come to and the car's in a ditch upside down. And you're like, what the fuck? How did we get here? Right?
Thank God we don't know what that's really like.
The subconscious thing of like, oh shit.
Right.
It happens even before you have awareness of it. And everything's off the rails and flipped upside down. And it's just kind of a nightmare to get it back up on the road.
I feel like you also, like, I don't know. But what it feels like to me is you consciously choose the avoidance as a way to trigger my anxiety, to pull me in. So it's like it seems like from these spots that if the anxious doesn't work, then
like mine?
Then the avoidant to trigger my anxiety.
Oh.
So then my avoidance leaves, and then I'm like, whew, and then you have me front and center again. What the fuck is that?
I will use the avoidant as like the enforcer.
Some like,
right. If I'm needy and feeling anxious, which is really hard for me to like own and, articulate, like it's really hard for me to, I'm doing a better job of communicating I need space. I'm doing not such a good job of communicating I need love.
Yeah.
Right. Like when I'm in a super needy, vulnerable place, it's really hard for me to communicate and reach out. And so I definitely see times where, like you said, I will use the avoidant enforcer to come in and manipulate you and trigger you. So then you come and attach to me. But it's not genuine, right? It's not your attachment that's not what I'm saying isn't genuine, but it's like it's tainted.
Yeah, it's not, you're not really you're needing me to like fill that void in a sense, to fill that need, as opposed to like you're really wanting connection.
Yes.
It's like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good.
No.
On either end of the spectrum, I'm sure, right? And vice versa too, right? Like when you're anxious,
mm-hmm.
and I'm not feeding that need, then do you have your avoidant come in and trigger me?
Avoidant come in and trigger you. There's got to be
vice versa. Like when you're avoidant, you'll have your anxious come in, because your anxious would be like your big enforcer, because it's your go-to, right?
Anxious enforcer, man. With you, yeah. I don't know. Like I know that
if that dynamic plays out on the reverse.
It's got to. Like I think if it's like it's true on this side, it's true on this side. Right. So it's got to. But it might not be the same. It totally does. Okay.
Because I can see it now.
Give me it.
So when you're avoidant, right? When you're really pushing away
mm-hmm.
and you're really disconnecting, you will fuck with me.
I will.
You will come out and poke the fucking bear.
It hits that point of when I can see, like it's not. It's like I'm trying to create space,
mm-hmm.
but as soon as that avoidance and with that space and you're like the attachment is coming in, there comes a point of, oh my gosh. Okay. So this is I have awareness of, so I'm really excited to talk about this, but there comes a point when I see it, when I'm like, oh, now you want. And so I will purposely not give you that so that I keep receiving it because I'm still feeding it. So that's like, I'm making you work for it because you make me fucking work for it. So now I'm going to make you work for it. And I know, because this is the anxious part of it. I know that as soon as I give in is when I lose it from you. And so I will resist the fuck out of that. So I keep getting it. Because as soon as I give in and I'm here and now I'm giving you my emotions, you're fucking gone again.
Then my avoidant comes back.
So I will, like, I have that space of that checkered space of where I am no longer avoidant, but I will not let that down. So I keep getting that love from you. Fuck.
Well, Steph, you got to fix your shit. I'm over here secure attached. I don't know what your problem is.
I know you think you are. That was a really hard thing. It was always me. I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's the way it used to be.
I used to, I didn't really realize how, until I started to really dive in and research it and books and like really get familiar with my attachment style. I thought you were avoidant and I thought I was avoidant because I couldn't see the how inside of this relationship because I was just looking on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was more pridefully comfortable with avoidant than anxious. I did not want to be anxious. I would not look at that. And then when I saw that that's what you brought up in me, I was so angry.
Do you know why? Do you have
angry.
Awareness of, actually, rather than asking a rhetorical question that I already have the answer for, let me try. I think, at least for me, that resistance inside of you to not admit that you're anxious or look at that you're anxious, I feel is probably because of where that comes from.
Yeah.
Right. Like for me, it's really easy to see that my avoidant attachment style comes from my mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that makes a lot of sense to me that it would be the same for you.
Yeah. There's also, on another level of it, because everything's got many levels, right? I viewed my needs and what I needed in a relationship, which it is not bad to want
Connection.
love
Yeah.
and connection and safety and intimacy, and to have needs in a relationship.
Yeah.
Like, that is not a bad thing. But I viewed that as a weakness and as a terrible thing and something that made me vulnerable to pain. I hated everything about that. The goal was to be shut off, to not have those emotions, to not have those needs. Because first of all, I wasn't worthy to have the needs. And having needs only meant that needs would not be met and would be painful. Like, I avoided, I loathed entirely any of needs that I had and the anxiousness, because I was like, you're weak. You're weak and you're vulnerable and you're pathetic, and like all of the things that I would tell myself about that. So that was a hard pill to swallow. And I had to do that with I had to do a lot of that by myself. Thank you, avoidance. I couldn't do that publicly. I couldn't do that out loud because it was so shameful. And I still feel shame for it. Like, this whole thing, talking, like, just like really admitting that anxious, and then hearing you like reflected back, you're anxious. I'm like, I'm disgusting. I'm not worth it. It plays on that shame card. So I have to really be able to move around that and sit in a different table and like see how it plays out, but not experience it. But it's hard because, the shame's over there. Like, look at you thinking you're sitting over at another table. You're over here at the shame table. It's such a fascinating thing.
It's very fascinating. There goes our wax.
Oh,
That's okay.
Beautiful.
How you just described
It's gonna keep
avoidant or the anxious.
Oh, that didn't work. Yes.
And how resistant you are to it, because it's all of these things. And then
the mother.
the criticism and the judgment that comes in
Mm-hmm.
when I'm over here being like, you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Listening to you talk about the avoidant,
Mm-hmm.
for me, activates all of this, like, fuck off.
Right.
Where it's like, do you know what I mean?
I'll show you avoidance.
Right? It's like, that's why I avoid,
Yeah.
because I don't want to get criticized.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get judged. And I don't want you to truly see me. And it's the way that I protect myself,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's the way that I mean, it's so fascinating.
It is.
It's these fucking parents. Because I can see how it played out in my parents' relationship.
Yeah.
Where one was avoidant and one was anxious.
Yeah.
And, what's funny too, because it's my mom and my dad, right? My mom is avoidant and my dad is anxious. But they would probably say that they were the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, if you were to interview them, I'm sure my mom would say that my dad was the avoidant one.
Yeah.
Because she would just project everything outward. Right. And never like, first off, she wouldn't have, anyways, we don't need to go down those rabbit holes. I'm glad we did this little exploration of going towards something that I think, I want to read that book. I know there's a book on it, right?
Yes.
Attachment Styles or whatever.
Theory, yeah.
Is that what it's called? So I'll read that book.
Yeah.
We'll keep
It's good.
exploring it some more.
There's a few. There's a lot of resources on this. This is, it's a big deal.
It is a big deal. And I think that it is something that because we've had awareness of it and we've talked about it, and we've talked about it kind of in a cursory way,
Mm-hmm.
but we haven't really gone towards it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if we can, consciously go towards it together, it's going to be
Consciously and lovingly.
yeah, right.
It's hard to like keep those
Yeah.
kindness in it.
Yeah,
Or at least for me. It's
it's what's hard for me is I need to practice more, because I can feel when you're like knee deep in the anxious.
yeah.
But what's hard for me is when I can feel that, and because there's different levels to it, right? There's definitely times when you need a little bit, and then there's times when you need a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And when I can feel that it's shifted into like this really unhealthy place, and we're playing out old patterns and old things and old stuff, it's hard for me to stop and be like, okay, this is her attachment style that gets triggered when she's really triggered, or when her nervous system is really activated and things are really dysregulated. How can I show up then?
Yeah.
How can I be in that space in a loving, supportive way, not to feed it unhealthily, but rather do my best to stay in a secure place of attachment to help regulate it rather than dysregulate it further. And yeah, I think we both have a lot of practice at work, ahead of us.
Right?
Yeah.
So much.
So
yeah, this is a tricky one.
Yeah, it is very tricky. Tricky.
We might only have to worry about it for, 3 more days though. We'll see what happens on the 5th.
Let's see, CERN. We're ready for the upside down.
We're not
ready
Let's
for
see
the what's on the other side. I'm ready.
I'm going for positive. I don't think
there's a negative about the upside down.
Well, from the perception that I have from Stranger Things, I view that as
you never know.
You do never know. And also,
maybe we got to find that dimension in order to find the other dimensions.
Go avoid yourself.
See you guys on the next episode.